Hello everyone, and thank you for attending today's webinar, which will tackle the issue of connectivity in Sub-Saharan Africa and the potential of OTT video markets in the region. Before starting the presentation, I would like to briefly say a few words about DataXis activity. DataXis is a global business intelligence company which has offices in Europe, Americas, and Africa. Regarding its research activity, DataXis is the leader in market intelligence of pay TV and telecommunication in emerging markets, including Latin America. DataXis also organizes events, namely Next TV CEO and Next TV series conferences, which are hosted in Miami, Mexico, Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires, Bogota, Berlin, Kigali, and Dubai. Finally, DataXis also proposes a newsletter, Next TV News for Latin America, Brazil, and Africa. For today's presentation, my agenda will be the following. First, I will introduce broadband and connectivity specificity in Sub-Saharan Africa. Then, I will focus on the SVOD market, giving a broad overview of the main actors and markets of the regions. This would be the opportunity to shed light on the existing pay TV operators' strategies using broadband connectivity to enhance their offer with OTT video. After that, I will address the topic of AVOD market with data coming from our latest research on digital ADEX. And finally, we will have a look on what we expect in the 5 next years in terms of connectivity and the opportunities it can create for existing and future players. To begin the presentation, I would like to briefly recall some particularities of Sub-Saharan Africa. The region pools 46 countries, representing in 2018 1 billion inhabitants and 215 million households. Yet, this number is split unequally, and 5 big countries account for half of the population, namely Nigeria, Ethiopia, Democratic Republic of Congo, South Africa, and Tanzania. It is still mainly a rural region, with only 40% of its total population living in cities. Besides strong inequalities of settlements, the region presents high disparities in terms of revenues. Nigeria, South Africa, and Angola represent together more than 50% of the total GDP in that region, which amounted to $1,400 billion in 2017. More generally speaking, the map on the right will give you an idea of the disparities of the region in terms of GDP per capita. South Africa, Mauritius, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, and Namibia and Botswana are the leading countries on these indicators. Sub-Saharan is not economically Sub-Saharan Africa is not economically as developed as the rest of the world. Also, it represents almost 12% of the total population. It only accounts for 2% of the world total GDP in 2018. Nevertheless, the region remains a significant market in terms of size and is expected to reach 1.2 billion people in 2024. The area presents an under-electrification level, which is limiting the development of telco, TV, and OTT markets. However, we can still notice that countries like Mauritius and Seychelles have a 100% electrification rate in 2018. South Africa is also well advanced in terms of electric infrastructures, contrary to many countries in French-speaking Africa, for instance. According to our forecasts, the global electrification rate of the region should reach 51% in 2024, versus the actual 43%. In terms of connectivity, there are currently 11 million fixed wireline broadband connections, mainly comprising of DSL. The fiber is notably growing, but its growth is mainly driven by South Africa. The cable remains marginal and is developed in punctual and historical markets like Angola, Mozambique, or Cameroon. Overall, the penetration of wired broadband is very tight in Sub-Saharan region. Only 1 in 100 people had access to a fixed internet connection in 2018. South Africa stands as an exception, representing by itself 80% of the total market, with a penetration rate of 53%. We will have the opportunity to go back to the specificities later when we will address the deployment of the OTT offers. So, as we've seen, today fixed broadband remains extremely limited in sub-Saharan countries. This can be explained by the fact that the fixed telephony has never really been deployed in the region. In fact, the developments have been happening only in the main cities and mostly for administration and enterprise. Though we can notice several cases like in Ivory Coast or in Senegal, where investments have been made to develop DSL and fiber for IPTV. But those remain located initiatives and are taking place in zones where there is a solvent demand. The graph on the left shows the extraordinary boom of South Africa wired markets since 2 years. Aside DSL and fiber lines, we can see that fixed wireless connections are supporting the growth with 4G, 3G, and lately 5G routers geared toward a home usage. The fiber network in South Africa is very interesting because of its development based on a wholesale model in which several operators are constructing networks disposable for ISPs. According to us, this success could be reproducible to other countries because fiber deployment is much cheaper than years ago, and also it can create great opportunities on different scales. Several Pan-African actors are already leading the deployment of fiber, like Liquid Telecom, Orange in French-speaking Africa, and more recently, Vivendi/Canal+. On the mobile broadband market, we can notice that 3G keeps growing and remains the first network before 4G. More and more mobile operators are offering 4G plans, but the development of the network is limited by infrastructures and the availability of affordable 4G supported devices. At the end of 2018, Sub-Saharan Africa counted 304 million mobile broadband connections, giving a 30% penetration rate. This sheds light on the fact that there is a large potential development of mobile connectivity. As we have seen, wired broadband is very limited in the region. Hence, the internet consumption is essentially mobile, which is associated with an individual usage. Although the current internet speed may not be enough for an OTT consumption, the opportunity of development are enormous. Accessibility to connected device is then a challenge for the development of a strong connectivity market. Here, we can clearly see that smartphone is the most used screen in the region, far beyond computers and even TV sets. Our forecasts underline the fact that smartphones are the install base that will drive the demand for video in the next 5 years. This trend will be supported, among others, by the arrival of Chinese low-cost smartphones on the market. Once again, figures are to be qualified with the high share of South Africa in the total installed base of the region. But the trend remains noticeable at a global scale. Strategy for OTT video would be a mobile one. This implies specific approach. First, on pricing, because as we have seen, smartphone is an individual device that implies an individual usage of data. In such situation, the power purchase is lower than in the scheme of traditional pay TV services addressing households, for instance. Moreover, there are other functionalities to examine in order to counter the problems coming from low speed and quality of internet. Some leading actors has already positioned themselves on the segment. Netflix, for instance, has launched a mobile priced subscription for its service in India. Now that we have an overview of the connectivity in Sub-Saharan Africa, we can better understand the situation of the SVOD market itself. SVOD, or subscription VOD, can be defined as a paying on-demand video service. For now, the market is very limited in the region and accounts for $84 million revenues and 2.8 million subscribers in 2018. The global penetration on population is also restricted to 0.2%. This can be explained by, first, the low connectivity rate of the region, an insufficiency of local content in local languages, a still high pricing in terms of service and data, and the lack of payment methods, like credit card, for example. Except for specific actors, mainly pay TV operators, there is also few active commercialization and distribution strategy in the region. But still, the small size of SVOD market cannot be attributed to an economic incapacity of the region. Although in 2019, the SVOD revenues reaches only $150 million, it must be put in relation with the $5 billion generated by traditional pay TV. The worldwide and well-known actors of the paying OTT video market, like Netflix and Amazon, are present in the Sub-Saharan African market. However, their strategy in terms of pricing and content are very limited and not well adapted to the state of the connectivity in the region. Aside, we can find local actors like Showmax, the SVOD service of MultiChoice, and Videoplay, the video OTT offer of Vodacom. Ultimately, there is a very wide bouquet of actors for a relatively small market. Not all of them can remain, and that is why platforms are closing. One can mention Quasi-Flix, who ended its activity in the region recently, and AfroStream, who closed in 2017, 2 years after its first launch. But it doesn't stop new actors to enter the market either. Videoplay, mentioned before, started its activity by end 2019 in South Africa, and THD24 a local SVOD market, has arrived in the same country in July. Still, most of the market remains at the hands of the already well-implemented actors, namely Vodacom Video Play, Netflix, and MultiChoice Showmax. 60% of the subscriptions are localized in South Africa because of the favorable connectivity environment implemented since years. Another aspect that we can talk about is the emergence of a TV Everywhere service initiated by pay TV operators. TV Everywhere is a multi-screen offer associated and accessible with the pay TV subscription. The service is still far from being as spread as it can be in Western Europe, for instance, but the initiative is emerging in Africa. Today, the TV Everywhere offers of pay TV operators are mainly smartphones oriented because they remain the principal connected devices with an important usage. Principal challenges of the development of the service stand not in the price, but in the development of an affordable mobile broadband offer. As we have seen, 3G and 4G access are developed, but it doesn't mean that affordable internet access is generalized. That is why TV Everywhere actors work with mobile operators in partnership to offer affordable data bundles. Depending on the dynamics of this action, we estimate that TV Everywhere services activation stands around 3 and 4% of the targeted pay TV subscribers in the region. This type of offers remain marginal, but is meant to grow in the close future. The interest of this strategy is that the operator can reduce the churn while creating a potential target for its VOD offers, which are still emerging and presenting lower penetration rates. The three actors here are the principal ones, but TV Everywhere offers are not exclusive to them. In the previous slide, I was talking about how operators can develop digital offers by deploying their content on other devices. It is a required strategy to address online audience because most of the current installed DTH and DTT base is not interactive. Yet, one can mention some initiatives in interactive decoders with the emergence of IPTV box, via fiber or 4G modems, and OTT box. There are some other propositions in specific markets, but the expansion is limited by the slow fiber development in the region. Some punctual initiatives in Angola, Kenya, and South Africa allow the emergence of a new generation of advanced set-top box. Here is a sketch of the deployment of IPTV from ZAP in Angola and OTT box from Safaricom in Kenya and Cell-C in South Africa. The spreading of those interactive devices allow the deployment of new value-added services like catch-up offers, OTT video services, and multi-screen solutions. When we look to free video financed by advertising, we essentially find the two main global groups of the segment, Facebook and Google with its video service YouTube. Together, they undoubtedly represent the main source of video consumption in the region. The other AVOD platforms are more marginal. They are international services from global broadcasters like Deutsche Welle, or punctual initiatives like the Hong Kong-based View, which offers free access to some of its content. It is what we can call a freemium model. Local actors are also involved with a freemium approach like Quasi Alfix mentioned before, or with low-cost free content like the South African TV2Go. There are very few independent platforms. Most of actors, such as broadcasters, mainly look towards Facebook and YouTube that can offer them a larger visibility. Some leading broadcasters like SABC in South Africa, TBC in Tanzania, or CRTV in Cameroon would have the possibility to drive big audiences by developing a dedicated platform. So far, their digital strategy relies essentially on their website, sometimes apps, but mainly, as we said, on Facebook and YouTube. Yet the monetization on these two media platforms has not yet been made available in all countries in Sub-Saharan Africa. One noticeable difficulty on the online free video market is the lack of revenues driven by digital advertising. According to our recent research on digital ADEX, we estimate Sub-Saharan Africa to be worth around 660 million US dollars, which represents around 0.23% of global digital ADEX in 2018. As you can see, when we remove South Africa from the total, there is little value left. The average digital ADEX per capita is put at 0.7 US dollar in the region, whereas the global average reaches $36, that is to say 53 times more. Excluding Europe and North America, the average digital ADEX per capita remains 25 times higher than in sub-Saharan countries. But, unsurprisingly, with almost $8 per capita, South Africa has the highest digital ADEX market opportunities of the region. Several countries, including Eritrea and Somalia, have a null or quasi-null ADEX. However, the small weight of Sub-Saharan Africa in online ADEX is coherent with the advertising revenues in other media, such as television. Free-to-air broadcasters' revenues in TV advertising stand around 1.4 billion US dollars in 2018. It remains a small market, but still the double of digital video for the same period. Moreover, as we will see in the next slides, video represents only a share of the total digital ADEX that we have here. Nevertheless, the weaknesses of advertising offer in the region and on TV in particular are not applicable to the digital segment. In fact, the lack of audience is limiting the TV ad investments, but this problem is solved through online advertising, where metrics on consumption and usage are the norm. Hence, the advertising expenditures not spent on TV because measurements aren't available could find a valuable outlet in online markets, in particular if online usage continue to grow. On another note, free-to-air TV remains a very fragmented market in sub-Saharan Africa, while on the online segment, we can already find the global actors. In the previous slide, we saw that the main difficulty for online advertisement investment is the limited connectivity of the region. Here, I would like to focus on South Africa to get into the specificity of digital ADEX. As you can see, video is only a part of the total digital ADEX. The other segments of digital ads being the display, like banners or pop-up, and the search with sponsored results. In South Africa, video advertising represents 45% of the digital ADEX in 2018. It was, similarly to the rest of the world, the fastest growing medium last year. In the video segment, Facebook and YouTube account globally for more than 55% of video ads. It is safe to assume that their market shares in Sub-Saharan Africa would at least be equal, rather exceeding this figure given the current low competitive market in the region. I would like to underline briefly that ADEX represent the expenditures of advertisers and not the revenues received by the media. The graphs here show the state in South Africa and give an idea of how it could be in other countries of the region. Now it is time to conclude, and to finish, I would like to show you our forecasts on the broadband, both mobile and fixed. As we have seen, the future of OTT video in Sub-Saharan Africa will depend on the evolution of connectivity. We think that the growth will be relevant enough, at least on the mobile broadband. Without surprise, growth in wired access will be driven by South Africa, who will strengthen its domestic markets. In terms of mobile broadband, 4G is expected to remain below 3G connections, but it should reach more than 30% of total subscriptions, granting the market with a sustainable growth. With this scheme, we believe that in the next 5 years, the TV market won't be as transformed by digital video as it is in North America or Western Europe. Hence, pay TV actors are already present on the OTT market, and stand at the leading figures in the deployment of paying streaming. Furthermore, online video will not represent a substitute in terms of connectivity, usage, network, or access. Sub-Saharan OTT video market should represent a limited competition to traditional TV, and its development on both free and paying model is forecast to rely on mobile. To discuss this subject, do not forget our conferences where all these questions will be debated with top executives from the main actors of the industry. This year, the 5th edition of Next TV CEO Africa will take place in Kigali, Rwanda. And yet, we have the pleasure to announce the launch of Next TV series MENA, a conference focusing on Middle East and North African markets that will take place in Dubai, the 11th June. Now I will take some questions. You can submit it in the chat. So for the question, how would you get the presentation? The presentation will be available on the website, the Dataxis website, next week. How do you estimate mobile broadband penetration? So this is a question of methodology. I think you can, I would come to you directly by email. What is the expectation on 5G? So we assume that 5G will have a low potential since the infrastructures are not ready yet. So, any specific data regarding Nigeria? Yes, we are tracking actually all the OTT and pay OTT markets on our database. So you can make an inquiry to us directly, or maybe ask more specificities by email. I will respond to you. What is the projection on VOD OTT seems to be prevalent in Sub-Saharan Africa. Is there any data on linear live OTT? There is few offers, and we are tracking the paying one on our database. But again, it's not very developed yet in the region. What is your projection on IT linear OTT? So as we said, it's very linked and dependent on the broadband connection first. So I think that there is a lot of questions, so I will I have missed some question. I will go back to all of them directly after the presentation, and I will personally email those who have not received an answer. Clients of DataXis can also write me to an inquiry for more precise insights. This is the end of this webinar. Thank you very much for attending the presentation. Again, it will be available on the website, DataXis website, And if you need further information about today's topic or about the data access conferences, do not hesitate to write me an email. Thank you all. Goodbye.